Hello, everyone. Welcome to Untamed Ink. Two friends, endless topics from the web to the weird and wonderful. I'm Jasmine, a B2B marketer, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Alex.
Hi, everyone. I'm a freelance copywriter and happy to be on the show today. Oh my God, I cannot get my words out today.
This is a show. Of course, you're happy to be on this show.
Sorry. So, yes, I'm a freelance copywriter and the other co-host of Untamed Ink, a podcast where we hope to divulge a lot of insights into the world of content, marketing, lifestyle, and just random lighthearted stuff that we think is interesting and hopefully to you.
So exactly. And today's topic, which we'll get to in a moment. So, Alex, as we're in episode 3, so people hopefully know by now, what was your untamed moment for the last week?
So my untamed moment this week is a little bit untamed, actually, more I think than last week. So I am a fitness enthusiast and I spend most of my lunchtimes working out just to break up my day. But what that means is I go to work in a coffee shop in the morning, and then about 12 I'll go straight to the gym. But I carry my backpack around me, which is my life. I don't use a sports bag. I'm someone that will dump everything in, from my notebooks, laptop, and that includes my gym clothes.
Oh no.
And basically, as women, sometimes when you wear gym clothes, especially shorts, that requires sometimes a change of clothes underneath your gym clothes, just so you don't have anything visible, any lines, visible panty lines, let's put it that way. And the other day when I went to the bakery in the morning, I was getting my notepad out, at least I thought, to write notes out for the day, and there was a few customers in the bakery, and I ended up pulling out my underwear. I was so embarrassed. I don't think so, thank God, but it was like not what I thought, and I had literally pulled it out like this, and I'm like, the worst part was it takes you a second to realize what you did, and then you had to put it back in. I don't think anyone's seen, thank God, but yeah, that was quite my untamed moment this week.
I wasn't expecting that. I can imagine, like, it just if someone decided to look at the CCTV footage, it's like, oh god, oh my god. At least no one saw though.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, and thank God, like, luckily where I sit is around the corner, so it's not in the main area where people sit in at the counter. So it's not too central. But maybe I think the staff saw. Yeah, I don't know what she might have been thinking at the time, but I think she had a quick glance. Like, I don't know if it registered, but yeah, I don't know if anyone that did see what that impression would be, because it's not like they'll know my gym stuff is in the bag, you know?
No, yeah. Or like you have a random change of clothes. Imagine someone trying to, like, you go to the toilet or something and someone like looking for you.
Like a thief coming in and picking something out. It is.
So, oh, okay. Give up. Okay, bye. Wasn't expecting that today.
It happened. It actually happened once before, many years ago, when I was in the UK. This was worse than that time, though. I was on the metro, on the train to work, and it was rush hour, and I ended up pulling my bra out of the bag instead of a book. So now that was embarrassing, especially in the UK, and everyone generally seen it. I was like, oh my, this is really bad. But this was not as bad as that. But it's still, maybe I need to I think I need to buy it's a sign that I need to buy a sports bag for the gym and not just place everything in my backpack and keep it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, here's an idea. You can buy one of those. I've gotten quite into watching James Smith. You know the guy? He's like personal trainer, Chris Williamson's friend.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah, he's the like proper like hench guy. And he uses, what do you call them? Like compartments or like dividers. So he like puts stuff in little bags and then puts it in the big bag. I think you should use that at
Oh,
least.
I've actually seen this. Yeah, in the specialized. Also, there's specialized backpacks now with so many
Mm.
compartments. So, yeah, I think it's worth buying. Uh, yeah, to
No
avoid these
specific brands, so we can't ask for a sponsorship one day. But yeah, I think that would be a good one rather than like having, because I hate, I'm one of those people as well. I just put everything in like the one backpack and then just go off for my day. And I hate having more than one.
I know I'm like a tortoise. Like my life is my backpack, and even on a weekend, like I'm the kind of person that won't have a handbag. I'll have a backpack.
Yeah, I'm the same. No, I absolutely hate like I'm so not a typical like feminine girl. If I could have no bags, I would love to have no bags. But they've gone and shrunk our jeans pockets and all the pockets in every single like women's trousers that like they kind of force you to buy a bag. So at the very least, I don't know, you know the like Uniqlo like off the shoulder
Yeah.
small tiny bag. Yeah, I've got one of those. At the very least, I'll do that. Then I can like fit my little coffee cup inside at least.
Well, at least you've got those. That's why you need, like, I always wear, well, I'll call them mom jeans, but I wear like not mom jeans, but mom jeans now because the pockets are so baggy. And
Ah,
I'm like a typical bloke. I'll put my phone in the back, money in my back pocket, like, and just walk around. It gives me so much freedom.
yeah. Same.
Okay, enough waffle
Right.
though. I'll get back to you. What's your intake moment this week?
Oh God, yeah. I'm still struggling with this because I've had such an uneventful week. I spent a majority of my week last week doing just one task. Um, and I suppose, ooh, actually, you know what? So, this kind of ties in with our subject for today. And anyone watching, obviously, you know what we're going to talk about. You've seen the title. So, um, so I was having a really, really long conversation, long meeting with my boss, and he's from Kent and has a really I don't mean this in I've absolutely no other way to describe it, but he's got like a builder's accent. So dropping the L's, dropping the T's, and um, I'm I'll get like a bit more detail later, but uh, I'm quite a bad mimic. So if I'm speaking to someone for a long period of time, I kind of I kind of mimic them as well. So I started dropping my L's, I started dropping my T's, and and then immediately after that, I have a weekly social with one of my colleagues, and I was not speaking very well. I was swearing my head off, which is so unladylike. And also, it's just like um, I like I picked up in it, so I was like,
Oh,
rather than isn't it? So I was like, that's pretty nice, isn't it? I don't know. You could call that untamed, especially the fact that I was just swearing my head off. Um, I also introduced him to this podcast. So James, if you're listening, hi. you have been you have been mentioned. And I'm so sorry for swearing my head off. I keep so in the background sleeping. So, actually, like about Jasmine being a very unladylike and swearing her face off while doing a virtual social with one of her colleagues.
So first of all, I'm just going to interrupt you. Like, this was not what I was expecting, like, your Untamed moment to
Me
be. And
neither.
even I'm not going to mention this person's name, but the way you've painted out that person is so different to how you've just painted it out, like that I had portrayed in my mind. And given his profession, industry that you work for and work in, um, I had not expected this builder's accent and the way I associate with builders back home, and I'm not going to go into it. And I'm just imagining this, and it's so funny to put you in this like persona together, and it's quite funny. And
It's quite
when
interesting, though.
and when
Yeah.
like phrases like in it start to weave into your vocabulary, good luck getting them out. Like, I can go into the topic later on with certain phrases used in my, like, where I am right now in Kathmandu, but and the swearing, it's like it's infectious. So I wouldn't be
It's so.
surprised if yeah.
The thing is, the trouble with In It, right, is I've been trying to phase it out because I'm noticing that it's quite bad. Um, so I'm just trying to go, isn't that interesting? Or like, that's pretty interesting, isn't it? It's just like, but it's so easy to say, In It, you know?
I think that is, I'll just say it as well. It's the same thing here. So when people say, like, instead of in it, they'll say no. Like, it's like, comment, no. Like, do
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, that
yes,
person is so funny. No. Like, and I have this no coming in, like, they're in it. And I'm like, in reality, you don't need any of these phrases to, like, reaffirm what you're saying. But it becomes
yeah,
so lazy and so, like, and especially in it, it's so slang driven. Like, I feel like in it, like. So yeah, okay. I'm looking forward to the builder's
hopefully
accent
I haven't infected you. If I
this
have, I'm
episode.
sorry. But yeah, all right,
Please,
so,
please, please, please weave in it into your LinkedIn post this week. Please, I dare
oh my
you. Like,
god.
just see how you can weave it in.
All right, I'm writing that down. Dedicate LinkedIn post to Alex. Weave in it. That'll be quite interesting. So, Alex, as I've made pretty obvious, we've got a relatively weird yet interesting topic for today, haven't we?
Yeah, I think it's quite relevant though because people are quite well maybe curious to hear us, and it's also hard to. We're not what we are on the tin. Let's put it that way. If they listen to us, there's more.
Especially me.
Oh yeah, you're like a big cocktail of so many different because it's crazy. So today I'll just lead in. We're talking about mismatched accents, and it's a really apt topic because Jasmine and I are not more Jasmine. Our voices have been quite diluted for some time, and yeah, it's just a bit of a light-hearted one and talking about accents. So, Jazz, how would you define an accent?
So, this is so funny because when I saw this question, excuse me, I just immediately went to this the stereotype of the American being like, oh, you have a really nice accent, and then the other person's like, oh, your accent's pretty nice as well, and they're like, I don't have an accent. So the definition of an accent is that everyone has an accent. It's just what it is. So it's essentially what I feel like, and this is in no way, shape, or form the scientific definition of an accent. What an accent is the intonation and the way that you speak. So the way that your voice kind of projects words. For example, we both speak in British accents ish. But if you don't know, if you go 5 minutes up from London, the accent changes. You go 5 minutes north, the accent changes again. So the British accent doesn't really, there's no one single British accent, IMO. So it's kind of similar with America, like California accent is different from Texas. Texas is different from New York. And that was really good. And yeah, so just how you intonate and how you vocalize words is how I would define an accent. And everyone has one.
Everyone has one whether they like it or not. I think you just did a pretty good way of summing up what an accent is. I would add to it and just say accents is how your voice can change, maybe according to pitch or pace or how you pronounce certain words, and doesn't necessarily mean what you have is wrong. It's just your own unique way of speaking, and it's probably what happens from what you pick up with growing up and around you. So it's just exactly the same as jazz. And that's, I would just say it just slightly changes based on where you are, what you learn, and your ways of pronouncing words and going about life.
I like doing words. Doing words is actually...
See, there we go. There we go. The lazy side of my speaking is coming out, and now we can go into this.
So I know the next bit might be like favorite ones, but I think it would be worth discussing where we're both from in the first place. So, Alex, why don't you get started and explain? It might be surprising to some people, but it might again not be if you're really sharp and listening into Alex's accent. You might figure out where she's from. But Alex, why don't you tell the world where you come from?
So I'm from the UK originally, and a city called Newcastle upon Tyne. And if anyone's familiar with this city in the northeast of England, it's where us Geordies are from, Newcastle United, and we're known for a strong, broad accent. Now, I don't sound typically Geordie as maybe what some people do, or thick in their accent. However, I now live in Kathmandu, Nepal, and accent is slightly changed since then, even probably the days since I was living in Newcastle. So yeah, I'm from Newcastle, and that's where I'm from. Now, Jazz, let's move to you before we get into the nuances of our accents. Where are you from? I think people need to guess. This is what I'm so excited about. Like, if they could guess and put in the comments, but you
5 seconds to guess and put it in the comments.
You could be a great spy. Let's put it that way.
You know what? That has been my like line of thought over the last couple of years, especially. Like, no one can guess. I'm going to waffle, so I'm giving people time to put it in the comments what they think, where they think I'm from. But essentially, like, I think no one can really pinpoint where I'm from, especially because I speak right now with like a Southern English accent, and it's just, even looks wise, people think that I could be South American, or like people have thought that I was Armenian, like Spanish. Because of my accent, they're like, "Oh, so you from London, or like you know, from the south of England?" And I'm like, "No, not even from the country." Once upon a time, I did sport a bit of like an Aussie twang as well. And I'll get into this reason in a moment. But all right, you've had enough time to guess. So essentially, I am half German, half Malaysian, and I spent a majority of my upbringing in Malaysia. And the reason why I feel like it's quite easy for me to pick up British, and the reason why I had an Aussie twang is because Malaysia is quite close to Australia, so we were exposed to Australian media. So growing up as a kid, I had like Aussie kids shows as well, and picked some bits up from there. But I don't think that goes really shines through anymore, unless I'm speaking to an Australian person. Then maybe it'll come through. But yeah, so I could be speaking with, because I grew up in Malaysia, I could be speaking with a Malaysian accent, and whenever I go back, I do because no one understands this. But essentially, yeah, I'm half German, half Malaysian, and speak with a British accent. And I've been telling loads of people that over the last little bit, and I'm like, I could actually be a really good chameleon, really good spy.
I love it. I really love it, and I think like it's really. I really want to hear you speak Malaysian. Malay is it Malay? What's the language?
So the national language is it's long story short, there's a bit of a story behind it, but long story short, it is officially Malaysian, but because it's rooted in the Malay culture, it's just called Malay.
And I want to hear you speak. I just want to see these different personas coming out into different languages, because it's amazing how much you can change based on how the language or accent you speak, because your personality can kind of adopt a little bit of local sass, I would guess. But yeah,
I mean, the Germans are not sassy. I bring that in for myself, but there's the German stereotype that they're just like, they don't understand sarcasm, but Malaysians are extremely sassy, I do have to say, and shout out to any Malaysians listening.
So I'm really I would have never have guessed when I first met you, and I still forget sometimes, like, you have so many different sides to you. That's in the most politest way possible, because sometimes I look for commonalities in people, and like, apart from own interest, I'll look for cultural commonalities, and then I'm like, okay, Jazz is German, okay, Jazz is British, okay, Jazz is Malaysian, and then like I have so many sides to bring, and I'm like, okay, not in a bad way, of course, but it's also, for me, I find it very hard. I have to switch roles in different ways depending on where I'm located. So in terms of your accent now, how would you describe it more generally on a day-to-day is Southern English?
Day-to-day, yeah, I would say. There's an official term for it, but I can't remember. I think it's like Southern Standard British accent or something like that. That is my day-to-day. Even though I'm a bit of a mimic, I try to keep that as the core accent, because otherwise it confuses people sometimes.
I mean, you have better English than me, to be honest, Jazz.
The joke is, right, English is actually my first language. Because I grew up biracial, the core language was English in between the families. So English is my first language, just like you.
English. My language is not English. Like, it's really not English. I don't know. I would call it more gibberish than English. It's so bad.
Jordish.
And I just hope no prospective clients or like any existing clients listen to this podcast because it'll reflect it. My writings. It may stop me from getting hired in the future. That's what scares me in discussing such a serious topic like this. But where I'm from, in the northeast of England, if people don't know, like we have accents, but we also have like local language where we become very lazy on English. So instead of I, we'll say ah or mum, ma. Like we have loads of words like canny, which is nice, bonny, beautiful. So like if I'm talking in my native Geordie accent, I'll talk so differently to how I'm talking now. Like I don't go too far and too broad like some people do, which is, I mean, it's so nice. It's such a friendly accent. But for example, like if someone's going to go like typically in Newcastle, how are you doing? They'll be like, yeah, right, pet. So they'll talk in a totally different like phrases. So yeah, right means you're all right. And I'm sorry, any fellow Geordie people that are listening, and I'm probably doing a disgrace to that accent, but because there's so many abbreviations, my English from a very young age was very different. Let's put it that way, and lazy. Was very lazy, and I was working in a doctor's surgery, and we had 3 practices. One practice I worked in was from the very posh, established area, so I would change, and then another area was very rough, and I'd speak very broad Geordie just to connect and have a form of empathy. However, growing up, I realized like I really love the southern accent so much, like your accent. I wanted your accent, and the littlest things like this is where it goes weird. So I think you know the divide between the north and south in terms of pronunciation. So we have like things like buck, and in Newcastle would be like book or cook, like you know, cafe, scone, like these kind of things. So I would deliberately try to adopt a southern accent just to get rid of that Geordie accent to try and what's the word? Try and make me more understood. But at the same time, I would default back to Geordie and still have this conditioned in me to speak out the very lazy abbreviations, which happens to this day. So yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, whenever you go back to Newcastle, do you have to switch back to Geordie? Otherwise, people will like, I don't know, pick at you or be like, "Hey, look, there's this posh southerner in our town."
I don't even think I have a southern accent. I've tried so hard, but since living in Kathmandu, this is another story in itself. Like I've adopted like a local South Asian accent. So a lot of phrases and ways of pronunciation is again changed to like what it's like over here. So the pitch, and so it's a real cocktail. And I think when I go home, I try to adapt because they think like, what is this Fruit Loop? Like she looks English, but she has some sort of weird Indian accent that is not, but also a northern accent that's not pronouncing. So I have to sometimes force it on, especially with some people. Like I have some school friends that I do see, and I have to remember like what is the crutch words that people use, or what's this to make it look like feel like I'm being normal, you know? Like I have to force it. And it's so hard to force something that you kind of get what I'm saying here. And then even with parents are okay, but still I try to force it as a sign of empathy. But I have to recall what kind of phrases this, and it's quite hard because I think people naturally want to judge you because they think you might look like you're trying to be better than someone. I think like might trying to like put them in. It's none of those, but people naturally default to those kind of impressions.
Yeah.
And it's quite hard every time I go back to England. I'm not gonna lie.
With that said, Do you have a favorite accent?
Oh yes, I love French. I love the French
Ooh.
accent. Yeah, it's really nice. I just find it very rhythmic and it's quite
Mm.
sassy. But I love the French accent. Now, apart from I can go into a topic for another time and talk about the French accent. What I want to extend that question to you. Do you have a when you go home to Malaysia or when you see relatives in Germany? Do you have to switch things up and switch your mannerisms up also? Because I know when you have an accent or speak a certain language, sometimes there's different mannerisms associated with saying certain things or pronouncing. Do you change?
Mm. Not so much. So, yes, when I go back to Malaysia, but I had a recent trip to Germany, and the thing about German is that, um, well, I don't feel like I really talk with a, an I don't know, a foreign accent when I speak German. Um, even I still to this day say German like a German, right? So it's a bit of a like I genuinely don't know how other people. I don't pay attention to how other people say the word, but when I'm speaking the language, there's um, I feel like I still have my personality in it, but it it also it just sounds it's like Jasmine speaking German basically, like happy bubbly Jasmine, but speaking what is perceived to be one of the harshest languages in the world. But when I go back to Malaysia, I feel like it's a lot more difficult because there are like loads of little things um, that I tend to forget because I've been away for so long. Um, like uh, no one speaks pure Malay. It's always a mix of English and Malay, um, and that just makes things worse because I then default to if I forgot a word in Malay, then I will just default to the English word that I know, um, and that gets really bad because if I'm reading a text in Malay, I'm like I I completely forgot what this word means. What is it? And I have to look it up. Uh, and yeah, so it's a bit difficult because when I speak English with a British accent. But when I go to Malaysia, I kind of have to drop it quite hard. And it's really difficult because I'm presently spending 24/7 speaking with a British accent. I have a British partner. And uh, yeah, it kind of what I was asking you earlier is because that has been and is my experience. If you speak proper English in Malaysia, they kind of like, yeah, what? Look at this person trying to show off their like good English. Oh, she thinks that she's so high and mighty. Hoo hoo. And I'm just like, no, it's just my first language. Calm down.
I can see what you mean. I think it's the same in a non-native, like those who don't have that as the native language, because I see people over here in Kathmandu, and those that want to be progress as a form of social mobility will try and load in the heavy words of the English language into
Mm.
whatever they say, and I can see people, and then people judge, and I can see what you mean in terms of like wanting to get rid of the accent. See, I'm the absolute opposite. Like, I wish I could have a really nice accent like yours. I really do. Uh,
It took a lot of hard work.
no, it's so hard, Jazz. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's even see the Geordie thing. That's another sketch. But like over here in the see, even how I pronounce Nepal or Nepal, like it's very different because it's a landlocked country and there's so many different regions. and people again have accents. However, because I've done public speaking, I've had to adapt my. Okay, it started with the Geordie accent that I had to smoothen out because it's very fast paced. Then English, then Indian English. Because this is a very. I have to add to whatever you're saying because it's such a cocktail like yours. So with the Indian English, I find myself, I have friends over here, wonderful friends, some from the capital, some not from the capital. And some that aren't from the capital have more of an Indian English.
Yeah.
And when I come and hang out with them, I'll come home. Partner will be like, why do you sound so Indian? Or I'll be going back to the UK. I think I just adjust so people can understand me more.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. And then again over here, they have a mixture of British English and American English. And then even when I'm in writing for clients, it's predominantly American English. So by default now, I've adopted just of saying things in American English because it's more universally easier. But now, when you think about it, when I go home to England, it's like I have to remember to speak British English, which is so hard. And I'll be like, oh, let's go to the grocery store. Like I'll say sneakers instead of trainers, or I'll say, and even when I speak with you, and I'm like, Jazz is so much more British than me, and I have to speak when, what was hard? When I was working with you and I was sending articles, and I had to keep remembering to put it in British English. And even when you run it through Grammarly, it doesn't always pick up the Z's and things like this. So, I think it's really, really, kudos to us. Let's put it that way. Very flexible, versatile people. I'll just say that.
I do have to add, though, I will never, ever, ever say trousers instead of pants.
Oh, I don't know when the last time I said trousers. That's really bad.
For me, right, trousers are like smart pants, like work pants. Like you have the nice, but I will never underwear is underwear.
I hate the word panties. That's definitely one thing I will never. I know I speak in American English a lot of the time, but I'll never use that word. I just cringe.
Yes. Yeah, so underwear. Everyone just underwear, blanket statement. We don't need to go to but I I do get in trouble sometimes because I'm like going around, I'm like, have you seen my pants? And everyone's like, what? Why would you be asking if I've seen your pants? And I'm like, oh god, trousers. So it's like the buffering in my head. I'm like, ugh. Anyway.
This is so funny. We could talk for hours about this. I'll just add to this one more. It's like I use the word vacuum now out of convenience. And obviously I don't know if you use Hoover or vacuum.
I use vacuum.
Oh, thank God. So no disrespect to people from back home and my family and friends, but I love the word vacuum over Hoover because Hoover is quite a lazy word. And I don't know if it's more Northern English or I'm not sure.
No. Yeah, it's in the South as well.
Okay, so what's funny is so I have someone over here, non-disclosure. Don't think of me any differently, but I have a lovely helper at home who comes and cooks and helps cook some food and cleans for me. Really lovely woman.
It's the culture. It's fine. Yeah. It's absolutely fine.
And she works with predominantly British families, and she's hardcore Nepali. Speaks in broken English, and she always asks me for the Hoover. It's so funny because I say vacuum, and it takes a while to see a Nepalese say Hoover, and then even because it's such a British word, and Hoover is not it's just a weird word for me because vacuum makes more sense, hence what the action is doing. But Hoover, and yeah.
Fun fact: Hoover is Hoover because there's a brand called Hoover.
Who released it? It's not Dyson called it. Was it Dyson that did the Hoover, or was Dyson vacuum?
Oh, I don't remember. Someone can let us know.
Hoover.
It might have actually just been the brand Hoover, because
Okay.
it's quite old. It's quite old brand, and I've only recently figured this out actually, because you see, the old style like massive vacuum
Yeah.
cleaners where it's like this round tube and you like drag it around. I feel like Dyson is relatively young, but I mean, I'm with you on the vacuum thing, because the proper name for it is a vacuum cleaner. You just cut it down to vacuum, you know?
Exactly. And then I also think when I go home, my mum must think I'm a snob because the other problem again is that Northern English is so different in different ways to Southern English. For example, the correct way, I'll say correct because I think this is worldwide universal, it's breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Oh
And
no,
in
no,
North
yeah, that's a
England, it's breakfast, dinner, tea. And
and
my
then
mum
supper.
is like, yeah, we don't do supper though. I wish we did.
No,
My mum, my mum is like, oh, Alex, what do you want for tea? Or like, are you having tea? And I'm like, yes, I'll have this for dinner. This, and I'm like, it's not tea. Like, tea is tea. Like, where is
yeah,
tea being thrown into this meal? Like, what?
it's the same in the south. It's the same in the south. Like breakfast. I think it was like breakfast, tea, and then supper, or breakfast, lunch,
Really?
tea, and supper. And I'm like, for me, it's so they're like technically 5 meals, and then there's like the in between meals. So breakfast, there's you can have brunch, which is breakfast, lunch, right? Lunch, tea, as in like afternoon tea. Have a bit of a snack, and you do your little teacups with your little pinky up if you want to, and then it's dinner, right? And then if you want a late night treat, that's a supper. That's what it is. I don't understand why tea is dinner.
Yeah, I know. And dinner is lunch, and like, it's so irritating. And then again, I have to adapt to meet my mum half. Like my mum, I'll still stick with. See, this is the problem. I've become very selective of what words I'm using in what languages, so it's a big cocktail of languages and accents. So I have to meet my mum halfway, and I think like coming to that topic about meeting my mum halfway, I think the same applies to you when you're in Germany or Malaysia. Is we have, I think it's a natural trait, um, a way of expressing empathy that we're having to adapt to suit these people.
Mm. Yeah, we said so in the last episode, didn't we? There were more where like, again, I don't want to say people please, but we're more on the empathetic scale of things. We like to make sure that people are comfortable and that they understand, and it's just one of our traits that we have in common, and that I suppose includes changing our accents depending on the person or the people that we're talking to.
Yeah, and I looked this up, and I we're not the only ones that do this. And I was like very curious because I also know, I don't know whether I should mention his name, but a friend of mine, very good friend of mine, he now lives in Australia from Newcastle, used to have, well, let's say Durham, which is like northeast England, has a different northeast accent. And I spoke to him in COVID. I remember we were doing some video sessions for some martial arts training, and he had a full Australian accent. And I know so many people's accents completely change. And I've looked into this. And there's a term, and it's called the chameleon effect. It's just like exactly what you're explaining, like how chameleons change their colors, they blend in with the crowd. And the chameleon effect, it refers to non-conscious mimicry of postures, mannerisms, facial expressions, behaviors, and accents, I guess, where unintentionally just to match the other person they're in to fit in with the existing social environment. So I guess we're just being chameleons wherever we go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a nicer term though, because I call myself a mimic, and it's we could get into this in another episode perhaps, but it's a trait that I've discovered that I've had for a very long time, and that's apparently a part of my neurodivergence. Um, you just because part of it is there's like a lack of like social awareness, so you try to like pay attention to what other people are doing, and then you what's the word, you kind of adapt accordingly. I think chameleon effect is a nicer term for it than a mimic, because I kind of feel like when I say mimic, it makes me feel like I'm, the Pokemon Ditto with the face.
Mimic can also come across as very like strategic, like you've got a hidden agenda and you're mimicking someone to. I don't know. I've read this in so many social psychology books. Like, how do you manipulate people? How do you like get them on board with you with mimic? Blah blah blah. And you do things when you're in a conversation and slowly copy their gestures so they feel like you're relatable and things like this. But I think chameleon is it's pretty nice. But the thing is, we default still back to what we're conditioned to. So sometimes the true skin, like our color, will pop out, which makes it. I don't know. I can't even know of an animal to compare to this. But yeah, I think definitely it's a sign of empathy, though.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, that is really what it is. I used to be a lot worse in terms of mimicking. My partner has a few Kiwi friends, and I would unconsciously pick up. You know how? Actually, I'm not 100% sure if you're familiar with the Kiwi accent, but it's like the vowels are kind of mixed up. So like A's are E's, E's are I's are O's, and O's are U's, kind of thing. So instead of, and this is the easiest word for me to say, instead of fish and chips, they say fish and chops. So
What idea? Fish and chips said in a Kiwi accent. Sorry, I was not expecting you to use fish and chips as an example. Here's me thinking of like. Here's me thinking of like a real landlocked country and like not landlocked, sorry, a lot of sheep and a lot of like lovely place where all the sheep outnumber people, and I know a lot of Kiwis and I never thought of fish and chips out of all the examples you were gonna use. Oh my, that's really bad, Jazz. No disrespect to Kiwis, but your cocktail of accent is so bad. If that's used with Kiwi.
But that's all they like, it's oh god, there was I don't know if you've watched this, and if anyone is listening has watched this, but this is a really, really good New Zealand ad, which is like, it's like their Christmas ads. I'll send it to you after we're done with this, and maybe I'll add it to the show notes. But it's so good. They're basically making fun of themselves and the accent, and they understand that a lot of people don't understand what they're on about. So it's essentially like Santa trying to interpret like a Kiwi Christmas list, or like the Christmas wishes of like Kiwi kids, and he has absolutely no idea what they want. So it's like instead of ball, he gives them like a bell, something like kind of that kind of stuff. So he can't really understand what they actually want. But it's a really good ad. It's so funny, and I'll send it to you after.
That's quite honestly, like Geordie, to be honest. we really pronounce things quite thick and different.
Mm.
And yeah, I can relate to that. So I'm not sure where to go to this, but in terms of being chameleons, do you think it really, apart from, do you think, this is what I'm very intrigued at. Do you think when you change your accent or change your mimic or change to someone like, say, that knows you well, say family or friends, do you think they know you're trying to change for them? Or do you think they just don't realize?
I think some people do. Some people do realize that. And again, like I used to be really bad before, and it kind of it could come across as inauthentic, like trying to be being a tryhard or something. But the thing is, I think we have to kind of draw a line between like people being good like chameleons and people who kind of want to make themselves be perceived as something that they're not. So what I mean by this is that like I could be speaking with a Malaysian accent, but instead I speak with a British accent, and I've developed this British accent over quite a long period of time. But when I go back and I speak to some people in Malaysia, it it they kind of sound like they're speaking with a fake British accent, and that's the like I can't off the top of my head. You can try and ask me, but I can't do it. I can't I can't mimic what the bad one is. Um, and yeah, so I yeah, there's like there's like a distinction we kind of need to make where if you go and throw me like I suppose similar to your friend, if you go and throw me into Australia, I will eventually morph into like an Aussie accent. Um, but I don't know. I mean, I'll probably pick up mate a lot, but I don't know if it will be 100% Aussie. Um, I don't know if I can ever do like no. It's, I don't know if I could bring myself to do that. It's like extra letters in the two-letter word. You know what I mean? So there's some things that I'll pick up, and there's some things that I just won't. Like I probably would just brush it off, and then they'll realize, okay, she's not actually Australian. But yeah, so that there needs to be some sort of like distinction between a good type of mimic and a bad type of mimic, I suppose. What was the question again?
Do you think other people know that you're putting an accent on to communicate with them?
Yeah, so, but going back to that, it really depends on whether you're a good mimic or a bad mimic. If people know you and know you to speak a specific way, for example, like I used to have some sort of like mishmash British Australian thing going on, and I have a really good Australian friend who knew me with that, and then we recently met up, and he was like, "I don't remember you having a British accent. What has happened, Jasmine?" And I'm like, life has happened. I'm sorry, mate. You're gonna have to live with me like this now. So yeah, it really depends, I guess. If you are consistently changing your accent within a singular instance, then I think it might come across as bad.
You know, it's really hard. I agree with you. I think it needs to be a clear line. How, first of all, people like us, I'll be a bit biased here. It's something that just happens by default because of like living in different locations. and this situation. However, I do see people that use it as a form of social mobility. It's quite evident that I do see people trying to speak as a way to get attention or to look more credible. I don't know why, but they do. I know someone who really puts on a thick Australian English accent, who is Nepalese, and I can't say the name. However, they just look absolutely ridiculous, sound ridiculous, and people make fun of that. And what bothers me is I know other people that make fun of these situations, and sometimes I'm thinking, do I get made fun of? Because unless you know that person's background as to why the accent might be like that, it's hard to comprehend why they sound like that. So I resonate with you, I understand, but I don't judge. But I know for sure there's people that will judge me thinking I'm trying to sound like different or trying to be different.
Yeah. I have a really interesting question again, right? So H2O, right? How do you pronounce that liquid?
H2O?
Yeah.
Okay. Water?
Yeah, so...
Without the T, like water. Like
water.
But wait for it. Wait for it. In Newcastle, it's water. Like, you want some water? Water. Like, they pronounce it like water. So...
Oh my god, no way.
Yes. So you've got like these extremes, right? All over the world. You've got water and water. Or like, and then Newcastle, water. Do you want some water? It's so hard.
There's a bit of a T in there.
It's so hard, you know.
So you say water?
Yes.
Do you get made fun of for saying that?
Oh, of course, yeah. I just got made fun in the gym the other week about it. Yeah. What about you? How do you pronounce?
It's really bad. When I'm lazy, I'll do water as well. Water. But I've been conditioned to like not drop my T's, so I will say water. But even though I say water, they're like, oh, water. But in so there's an instance recently where I went out with my uncle, and me and my partner went to a shop to buy water, because it was really hot. It's getting really hot here in Dubai. It's like hitting 40 degrees and above. Feels like 48, by the way. And we're just like, we really need hydration. So we bought water, and then my uncle was like, "Where did you go? What did you get?" Like, and we're like, "Oh, we just bought a bottle of water," and then he was like, "Water," and then so instead of taking the hit, right, my partner claps back, and this is how. So this is a Malaysian uncle, by the way. This is how Malaysians say water. They say water.
Oh. That's actually quite polite way of saying water. It's not a snobbish, but it's very like helpful. It sounds like, yeah, it's quite helpful.
I feel like it's so different, and then to make fun of someone saying something a certain way, but then you say a completely other way. It's like,
oh yes, and then here we go again. I'll just add to this while we're talking about this. How do you say BALI?
Bali?
Okay. I don't know what the right way of saying it is, but I'm going on holiday next month. And in England, people say Bali. But over here, some people say Bali, and then others, like my partner, will say Bali. Like, we're going to Bali. And I'm like, and I've started saying Bali. And I'm like, is it Bali or Bali? Or what? Like, how, what?
Ooh, okay, so I'm gonna have to unlock my... So Indonesian and the Indonesian and the Malaysian language have very, very similar roots. So if I go to Indonesia I can actually hold a proper conversation with them, with exception for some words that have changed. For example, like the word for toilet in Indonesia is toilet, but Malaysians say tandas, which is the like OG original way of saying it. And sometimes, like the one time that I've been to Bali, it like I was like, where's the tandas? And they're like, what are you on about? I'm like, toilet? So I have to unlock my like Malaysian Indonesian brain for a moment. It's gonna give me like, so saya ingin ke Bali.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
That's okay. Fair enough.
that's how they would pronounce it.
But then again, like you go to other people. Okay, like just because we're on the topic of accents, if you know the correct way to pronounce a word native to the country, like anything, let's say quinoa instead of quinoa, like or whatever people say.
Quinoa, I don't know.
You get what I'm trying to say?
I say quinoa, yeah.
I say quinoa, but some people will say like you kind of get what I'm trying to say here. So people have their different ways of pronunciation, but you'll know the correct form. If you use that in front of people, people will judge you straight away. You have to adapt because people think like I think it for me at least it's a fear of looking like people think you're superior or trying to like put them in their place, and it's so difficult because you want to just go about the way, but at the same time you don't want to look like you're trying to educate a person or so that's the constant juggle of accents. You have to really change them, and I think it can be such a great advantage. Is a form of empathy and a form of understanding and connection. However, accents, I think, especially mismatched ones, sometimes have a big disadvantage over the having just an accent in itself.
Yeah. So there are 3 different ways of saying Dubai, by the way.
Oh, I only know Dubai. Oh, Dubai. Is it?
So
it's Dubai. I say Dubai. Is it like that one of them?
That is the proper way of saying it. The actual way of saying it is Dubai, because fun facts. I can kind of read a bit of Arabic, because old school, like way back when, Malay used to be written in an Arabic script. And the Malaysian constitution is in the Arabic script. So they taught us that in school. So coming here, I'm like, ooh, I can still kind of read things. There's no ooh or o sound when you read it in the Arabic script. It's straight Dubai. And then people go Dubai. And then I've learned that the posh way of saying it is Dubai.
Oh, wow. Oh, that seems so Dubai.
Dubai, yeah.
Like
I don't know.
Dew on the there's the morning dew kind of thing. Like
Dubai, kind of like that. But I can't bring myself to say that way. It's so weird.
Dubai. No, I think if I'm talking to people and I say that, I think they'll think like, is she okay?
Apparently that's how you're supposed to pronounce "use." So okay. So I'm just going to pronounce it the way that it was originally meant to be pronounced. It's like you know, some German words being used in English. Schadenfreude is one of them, and I will say it in my German way, like the feeling when you're kind of happy at someone's misery. I don't know how to say it in like a normal English accent, but because it's a German word, I default to the German pronunciation. And it's just like, I've also noticed people saying like verboten instead of forbidden, or and in that way, and I'm like, no, it's verboten. What are you saying? Stop using German words you don't know how to pronounce. Stuff like that, you know?
The reality is, I think it's a double standard you got going on there. Because I think you and I, we have our own language we've created and selected different words or pronunciations from different places we like have lived or associated or linked to or part of our heritage. So we might, like, you could have someone calling you out for not saying Dubai instead of
Yeah.
Dubai. Like, I think what I'm trying to say is we've become. I think we've created our own accent.
Mm.
That's what I like to think it as. It's like a unique form of identity.
Yeah. Yeah. And when people hear us speak, they know that it's us, right?
Yeah.
So if like you're on the phone, you pick it up, or like then they know who it is instantly. Kind of like that, yeah. So it's like an identifier. That's really interesting. I do have to like mention one more word that I like, because I grew up in Malaysia, and also this I swear this does not exist in German as well. It's really hard for me to say, and I'm overthinking this as I speak. It's really hard for me to say mathematics because of all the H's.
Say it again.
So so like mathematics, like I can say that, but when you abbreviate it, right, you say maths, right, with the H, or I mean, if you want to pronounce it properly. But I can't do that without thinking, because in German and in Malay, there's that H does. So you say maths,
Like,
yeah,
oh,
because it's
yeah.
in German it's Mathematik, and then in Malay it's like, or similar, mathematic. There's no H in there.
Okay, so I'm actually just googling like. So then like, yeah. Now I'm coming to think of it. The way I pronounce it is mathematics. So we don't even say. I think it's the Geordie side coming in. We don't even use the E. Like, you know how you say like mathematics.
Yeah,
It's like mathematics, like mathematics,
yeah.
like mathematics. Like
It's
this
like
really lazy
yeah, it's a bit like aluminum, isn't it? Or it's supposed to be aluminium. It's
aluminium. Yeah.
al-
Oh, that's really hard.
aluminum.
There's so many different connotations. Oh, and then I think I don't know what is. I'm not going to talk about partners here, but we're both with partners who have different. Oh, it's so hard to find mediums sometimes to come and find the common words that are used. However, I think we could go on so many hours talking about this because it's such a broad topic. And I definitely
Yeah.
think we should have a part 2 episode for this because there's so much content this could cover.
I don't think we even thought that we would be going on this long.
This long, I know that's what worries me. Like, it's going on this long, and I think we're definitely going to have to do a part 2 because there's just so much to cover, and especially the way things are. And also, by the way, I'll just add to a side note, just to add on. One time, a client, I think I do great work for my clients. I'm not going to lie, I'll big myself up here. And genuinely, it's pretty good. And I'll revise accordingly based on their briefs and anything they need. And one time, I remember getting a prospective client that gave me a trial piece of work to do. I can't even remember what the topic was. This was a couple of years ago. And oh my God, I'll tell you what, they thought I'd outsourced the work when I come back. Like, I'm not even kidding. I was so angry because I think it's not just the accent. Like, you pick up the personality when you're adopting that accent, and I think like the article must have seen they hired a British writer, and I think they've got like an Indian English writer, and they must have thought like I was outsourcing to somewhere in Asia because I think it's not there was no spelling errors or mistakes. I think it was generally the flow sounded so off, and you wanted a British tone of voice in your head. And I think I'd got so used to. I think this might have been the COVID time because I was doing a lot of online Zoom meetings with Toastmasters, and I think they actually I had to prove it to me, find ways to prove that I'd written the work, and it's so hard to prove that you've written the work at the same time. And I was so offended. I was like, how can someone think I've outsourced this? I've written it, and I had to argue so hard that I'd not outsourced the work. Yeah. Anyways, that's another topic for another time. So coming back to what I was asking is I generally think there's benefits of accents. I think there's it gives a lot of people charm, it gives them personality, it gives them certain unique traits, and I think they're brilliant. But mismatched cannot pronounce. Oh God, it's so hard sometimes. Mismatched accents. Do you think they're good or bad?
I think it really depends. It absolutely depends on the person, and it depends on the situation. So if you don't speak in a specific accent, so for example, if you're Malaysian and you go to England for travel and you suddenly adopt a fake British accent, I think that's no good. If you are Malaysian and you live in England, and you've lived in England for over 5 years or whatever, I say 5 years because 5 years, then you can get a British passport. Then if your accent changes to a bit more of a British accent, then that kind of makes sense. But if it's just quick situations, then mismatching your accent is kind of I don't know, disingenuous, so to speak. But overall, everyone has a specific accent, and that is part of who you are. And if you keep chopping and changing it, you're kind of, I don't know, making it seem like you don't know who you are, getting into the deep, you don't know who you are as an identity. That's what I have to say about that. Yeah.
Wow. Life coach, No, I agree. I think it's not something. It's really tough. Mismatched accents. It happens by default, and it's understandable. However, people should not try to change their accent unless there's genuine reasons, like they need to give a real inspirational leadership speech and motivate many people from different backgrounds to be understood. Now, I understand these kind of things, or a politician giving a campaign. We're not going to talk about politics. We know views. I could talk about this very much, but I think if it's a politician giving a campaign, they need to be understood and articulate. I think in moments like that, it's okay to change your accent. However, if you're on the day-to-day, if you're changing it up, I think it's wrong. Agreed. I think it's who you are. You should just go about how you be, because it's just too much mental energy if you change the way you're conditioned, and this how the environment has shaped you is also part of who you are and how you speak. And I don't need to think you need to keep changing all of the time to fit within different environments. But I do think, I don't know how, but going forward in the future, I think people should be educated on different types of accents and to why people might be speaking differently, because we're in a world now where everything is so much more accessible. We have so many flights every day that our parents' generation didn't have, and which brings me to say there's going to be so many cross-cultural relationships and so many beautiful children of different races combined, and that the whole accent thing is going to be so mismatched in the next so many decades to come and diluted. And I think that's totally fine. But I think people need to find a way to educate others instead of judging.
Mm.
And I don't know how that's going to be put forward or done, but I think that definitely needs to be pushed forward for the people that are less well traveled or less, aware of this situation, because this is going to be a very normal thing in the future.
Agreed. Just as you were saying that, I was just imagining again, going back to the Americans who say to like an English person to speak English because they're speaking English in their English accent. Totally agree. Like, there's so many different accents all over the world, even within countries. Um, and yeah, it's not only in English. Like, it's in different languages as well. And I can speak from my personal experience, like the normal, typical German accent is very different across Germany. But then there's also the Swiss accent and the Swiss dialect, and then there's the Austrians who speak a different way as well. And then there's like, I think Liechtenstein speaks German, and then there's Luxembourg who speak German as well. So loads of different languages. And I've heard that, since you brought up French earlier, French in France and French in Switzerland is also very different.
Yeah.
And it's the same in like Malay. Like, I could speak to an Indonesian pretty fine, but that accent, because predominantly their language is different as well. But it's all sorts of different accents, even in Chinese. Not even like dialects like Mandarin and Cantonese, but even just within Mandarin itself, there's a north-south divide, and you can tell where a person's from by the way they speak, by the way they speak Mandarin. So it's not just in English. Fun fact: don't need to like I don't know feel superior because it seems like it's in English that loads of people have different accents, but it's across different languages as well. And yeah, just chill out, be happy with who you are and where you come from, be proud of where you come from, and you'll be all right.
Yes, be proud, be happy, and I think whenever possible, accents are so beautiful. There's a lot of interesting, what's the word, reasons for an accent, and I think you don't need to justify your accent to anyone, but if you want to, I think you more that like it's a great way to share your uniqueness about your accent and stay strong with it. I don't think it's anything bad at all.
No. Any final words?
Nah, I'm getting off now for me lunch, like.
And with that, I hope everyone has a lovely day. Thanks for listening to our random ramble. And we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye!